So similar to SWOT is the PESTEL analysis. These aren't as common. I really like them. I did these a lot in some of my classes. Uh, they come out from a different view. So SWOT tends to be more internally focused. PESTEL tends to be more externally focused. So the business and operating environment. So I kind of like these from that view. There is some crossover, so you're going to see some overlap on some of the things I'll talk about. Sorry about that. It's just how it is. I want to be as complete as I can. So let's get on. Let's start with the political environment. It's weird to think, but the political environment affects ransomware organizations as well. So geopolitical safe havens. It means I kind of alluded to this earlier, at least in another module. Um, Ransomware groups really rely on like secrecy, poor law enforcement, extradition treaties. They don't want to go to jail. So a group based in Russia is very unlikely to attack Russian businesses, especially in Russia. There was a story came out a few years back where one of these groups was hitting Russian businesses and they were executed. Um, so a lot of ransomware now checks what language is on the computer, and if it's the language that they speak, they make sure it doesn't install. It just will. Some actually will patch it up. They'll actually put patches in place to make sure that someone else can't attack it. It's rare, but it does happen. So they do not want to get in trouble with the place they live. They want to not have extradition treaties. So a American company is very unlikely to get extradition of a Russian ransomware group. So they want to run out of Russia because they can pay off the local enforcement. They can operate in secrecy because it's harder for us to get information out of the Russian authorities on who these people are and to bring them back for trial. State tolerance or sponsorship is useful to these groups. So they may receive support or a blind eye from the state. Russia tends to turn a blind eye to their ransomware people attacking other countries because it brings money into Russia. As long as they may keep their nose, I'm not saying nose clean, but keep themselves to only attacking outside their own country. Um, this really does blur the line between what is cybercrime and straight up cyber warfare. Cybercrime typically is more financially motivated. Cyber warfare is more disruption motivated, but they kind of are the same thing in a lot of ways. So if I'm a cyber criminal and I attack a group, attack a business that might have national security interests and demand money from them, I'm getting both ways now. Of I'm getting money, I'm also disrupting the host country because that might be a national security asset. Regulatory is an increasing threat to these groups. Regulatory pressure to ban or not allow ransomware payments or to require them to report it, um, so that it's less likely for people to pay it, are becoming more and more common. Uh, some countries are actively trying to sanction crypto wallets so that the ransomware groups can't get money. I actually don't know how they're going to do that. It's kind of weird because the whole idea of cryptocurrency is that it is anonymous, it is decentralized, it is impossible to track. So it's very difficult for law enforcement to or governments to shut down. Um, it is possible, I think. But I don't know about crypto to really tell you for sure on that, but it is something that we're seeing more and more interest in as far as governments go. Um, Economic view, as I said a bit earlier, ransomware is highly profitable, and ransomware as a service model is highly profitable and scalable. So it's got low overhead, low risk. If you tell someone they can make a lot of money without much effort and with very low risk themselves, they will probably consider that as an option. Uh, Cryptocurrency is the economy of ransomware. Um, I'm not saying crypto is bad. I'm saying that bad guys are using crypto because it does allow for anonymous payments. It allows them to avoid regulation and law enforcement for the most part. That is changing a bit, as we saw in the previous slide. Um, but I think we're still a ways away from any realistic regulation of cryptocurrency. Um, Global economic instability works for and against these ransomware groups. Um, if there's some sort of instability, the ransomware groups will typically use that in their phishing campaigns. Say, like with COVID, when that was a big thing back in 2020, the phishing campaigns very commonly said they kind of played on that lack of knowledge of what was going on. It's like your COVID tests are here. Click here to view your COVID test, or there's COVID in your area. Click here to see your information. So they played on that. On the flip of that, though, is if there is economic instability, it's less likely for companies to be willing to pay because they simply don't have the funds. If the stock market takes a downturn, if the companies just don't have liquid assets available, liquid funds available, they are less likely or simply cannot pay the ransom. Some groups will work with companies on this, on trying to negotiate or negotiate even with their insurance companies to help them get the funds, but that is a problem for ransomware groups. From the social view, this is kind of an interesting one. Cybercrime has become somewhat normalized. Uh, for the most part, cybercrime is an unknown in the public mental space, but it's becoming more and more common that people understand what it is and how it works. More because they're cybercrime for a long time. Hacking was between a hacker and a company, and there was very little like information that got out about what happened there. They get in and grab some information and disappear. That's becoming less now. Things like ransomware, where the ransomware will attack public facing utilities or businesses or something that consumers actually use. So then it becomes more noticeable, and it kind of turns the public opinion against these ransomware. Right, like ransomware on its own is theft, is extortion, is blackmail. They're bad guys, but the public perception does matter. Um, Hacking for a long time was glamorized, and it's still glamorized to some extent, in things like online communities and movies, entertainment. They're kind of shown as like the misunderstood rebel just trying to do the right thing. And in some cases, they are. Um, but that Wild West view has been sort of shifting over the years to where they're being seen more as like drug dealers that are not put into a good light as a whole. They're more just viewed negatively on the whole of the public. Um, Victim psychology is important for ransomware organizations. They very much rely on the fear and urgency of their attack. Most people, if they have time to think, they will find a way of handling the ransom or of identifying it as a phishing attack. Most ransom attacks begin with the person, not through something else. They begin with an email that went to someone that they opened and provided credentials to. And that email will generally have some sort of urgency in it that will play on a fear. Like, here are your medical test results. You have 24 hours to view these. That will get someone to clicking in and not really looking at, is this legitimate? Is this from where it should be coming from? Am I really expecting this information? And who am I providing this information to? My credentials. Um, so they rely on making people scared, so not thinking straight and taking quick steps that they would not normally take. So psychology is important in ransomware, um, especially when they're attacking places like healthcare and education. Public awareness is growing about this. So, from a business view, from a legitimate business view, businesses are less likely to pay ransoms if it's going to make them look bad. So, you kind of do the math of like, if I pay the ransom $1 million versus I will be down, my business operations will be down for 2 weeks and cost me $30 million. So it makes it almost makes sense for me to pay the $1 million and get back in operation than lose $30 million. But I have to report this now so the public knows I paid this. So will this hurt my business or my business reputation? Will people be less likely to do business with me, especially if it's a business that handles personally identifiable PII, personally identifiable information, such as a hospital, insurance, or credit bureau? If those if people know that these companies have lost their information to hackers, they're less likely to work with that company in the future. Technological, we've touched on a lot of this already, so I won't go too much into this. Um, but technology is what enables ransomware to work. It is the core of the ransomware business, is using the software and infrastructure to do this. So tools have been innovating pretty drastically. Uh, that's been working for them against them in a lot of ways. So they are able to develop tools and techniques and processes and automation much faster than they have in the past. The flip of that is cybersecurity advancements, where we can do the same thing, where our systems are getting smarter by using AI, or being able to develop things, or be able to find breaches faster using AI tools to go through massive amounts of data very quickly. So it kind of works for and against them. Also, inside their own market, other ransomware organizations now are able to develop their own tools faster, so they have more competition, which drives down the prices they can demand for their own tools. Also, like for credentials phishing and affiliate programs, kind of same thing happening there. That it's become much easier for someone to get thousands of credentials they can resell. So it's harder for someone to demand a higher price on their premium on their package if someone else can do the same thing. So a number I've seen kind of thrown around. This is a questionable number, so I'm going to start that statement from the beginning. Is claimed that some 80% of ransomware tools have AI features in them. So like much like Adobe Reader now has AI for some reason in every step of it. We don't ask for it, but it's there. And many ransomware tools, it now has AI features in them as well. Supposedly. Uh, Realistically, though, we are seeing some 83% of phishing emails are containing AI generated content. That is working very well for the attackers, because for the bulk of technology history, uh, when we've been talking to people, we tell them, like, if you get an email that has like syntax errors, has grammar errors, has spelling errors, just reads wrong, it's probably not legitimate. Thanks to AI now, these attackers can write an AI can write a phishing attack in their own language, and it translates over to another language very well. Like, it reads very well. So that has making a lot of that instruction not work anymore. So that has been very useful for them. It's like kind of the flip of that is using AI in the cybersecurity side. We have been able to cut their dwell time by something like 80 days. So depending on the type of attack, a lot of these groups will hang out in your systems for a good long while trying to get what they can, trying to intercept invoices, to redirect your wire transfers, to download your data, to see what they can find they can resell. Uh, so thanks to AI detections and monitoring, we have been able to cut that by an average of 80 days, and we've saved around like an average industry wide, not just us, um, have saved around $1.9 million per incident. So that's not a ransomware payment. That is remediation expenses have decreased about an average of $1.9 million. So AI is kind of double-edged sword that works for and against these cyber criminals. Little bit less in play, but still of note is things like are things like dark web marketplaces. These are the platforms that the attackers use to facilitate sales of credentials, of data, of their ransomware kits. It's good for them to be able to organize these things, because it makes it a lot easier for them to market and contact other organizations like them. But it also helps with groups like mine and with law enforcement to be able to track them and build a better profile, and to look for any information they provide that we can use to build a basically a personality or profile of these organizations and their people. So we can piece together little bits of data, like how they speak, what dialects or regional ways they're talking, if they say anything that is localized, what times they post, kind of gives us a better idea of like when they're awake, so that when they're probably doing things, what times they don't post, do they have a job that they're going to? So it kind of helps us narrow things down. So on both sides. Looking at environmental, so this is actually like environment, not business environment. these, like I talked a little bit, they don't have a lot of direct relevance, but you do see the environment or environmental disasters coming into play for ransomware. It's using natural disasters to play on their phishing or on their social engineering vectors. Legal is a big help and harm for the ransomware industry. International crackdowns are becoming more common. Countries working with other countries and sharing information to track down these organizations and take them down. Uh, Mostly because they lose so much money. Um, they're talking $57 billion lost in 2025 alone. Man, that's a lot of money. Uh, the economies and the businesses and the countries don't want that, so they're learning to work together to play nice in a sandbox to take down these basically these ransomware bullies. Sanctions are becoming increasingly common uh, to take down to at least pressure a country. So if there's like a known ransomware group working in that country, it's not uncommon for sanctions against that economy to come into play to force that country to take action on that organization. And regulatory pressure is becoming more common as well, uh, where mandatory breach disclosures are becoming more common. Most time, it's only for groups that are like PII, so insurance, banks, hospitals, medical type things, or have those mandatory. Sorry, um, but it's becoming more common for other organizations as well to require disclosures. So it puts pressure on that group to do better to prevent cybercrime, but also to not pay the payment because they know that it's going to get out and they're going to be known for paying that, which puts them at risk as well. And cyber insurance, as I said, is increasing their scrutiny and either raising costs if you don't have these measures in place, refusing to pay out, or just saying you better have these in place and have a third party audit makes and prove that you have these in place. So I think something like cyber insurance is part of this requiring these stronger controls. So now the estimate is like 96% of state and local governments have improved their defenses so that they can get coverage, so they can get insurance coverage. Um, it's still not enough, but it's a good step. The SEC in the United States made it mandatory to disclose breaches in 2023. And not just regulatory, but between companies, we're seeing an increasing demand in contracts to disclose breaches. So while your business might not be operating in a regulatory or compliance space, you probably have vendors and customers that have it written into their contracts that if you are exposed to, if you have a compromise or a breach of your systems, you must notify them and tell them like what was exposed. So make sure you read your contract. So that probably is in there. We've had that happen a few times now. We're working with the group and like, hey, you have this, and you have to go back through all of your contracts to see what contracts are still in effect, and you have to do notifications. Um, we're seeing more contracts, especially the boilerplates, are just having it in there now. So it's not just groups saying like we're intentionally adding this. It's part of the template now. So um, kind of the from a business view of the threats, weaknesses, and strengths we're seeing in these ransomware organizations.